If you're playing in an adventure and the Dungeon Master allows you to choose feats instead of ability score bonuses, you might want to think about some cool feats for your Barbarian, so let's get into that. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner, and welcome back to the Daily D20, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. Now today I wanted to get into some feats, some of my favorite feats, for the Barbarian class. We spent the last several days looking at the Barbarian class and the different primal paths connected to it, and I've touched on some feats here and there during those videos, but I wanted to do one where I really look at the feats and say, these are my top 5 picks for the Barbarian class. These aren't necessarily all the ones you'll want to pick, like, they're not all one size fits all, so to speak, but most of them will come in handy in different situations, so you really got to think about it when building your Barbarian, what kind of feats you might want for that. But these are my choices and the first things I look at when building a Barbarian. First up is a feat that I really think everyone should look at seriously, because it is that powerful of a feat. Some DMs even go to the point where they ban this feat from their games. I've heard of that. And this is the feat called Lucky. How does Lucky work? Well, you have so much luck, and it just happens to kick in at just the right moments during your story, so you gain 3 lucky points, or luck points, that you may use per day. As you go throughout your day, you're able to expend these luck points to have certain effects on your die rolls and things that are happening in the game. What are these effects that your luck points can take? Well, basically you got 2 options. One is if you make an attack, an ability roll, or a saving throw, you may spend a luck point to roll that roll with advantage. Here's the twist though, you can actually roll both dice right at the bat without having to expend a luck point, but you do have to decide if you're going to expend the luck point before you hear the outcome of your die roll. So this would mean if you have to make an ability check, and you go, here's my ability check, and then you roll a second die over to the side as your luck, and your first roll was really low, like maybe a 3 or 4, and you think that might be too low to accomplish the task, you could then look at your other one and see if that is higher or lower. If it's higher, you could expend your luck point to use that roll. If it's lower, you can ignore the option of having to expend a luck point because you rolled poorly anyways. Then you state that to the DM, I would like to use my luck point on this one, and you give them the number, then they give you the result of your roll. That's the basics of this first option. And this works on attacks, ability rolls, and saving throws. All 3 of those, which are very important things. The other option you have for luck points is when you are in combat and you get attacked, you may expend a luck point to roll a d20 and replace the attacker's d20 with your d20 in that roll. Again, you can roll your die and see how it is before you decide to expend your luck point. Here's a note with luck points though, if multiple people in your party have the feat of luck, the luck doesn't stack up. So when you're doing these kind of giving disadvantage to enemies sort of kind of action, they don't stack up. Only one person gets to do that at a time. You don't get to have all 4 members of your party roll their d20s and see who's lowest. One person can do it, they can try it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. They don't stack. The reason this feat is good for Barbarians is also just because you want to be able to hit things. That's the whole point of Barbarians, and I think this is just a good all-around feat to have to just give you more of a chance at succeeding in life. The next feat I really like as a Barbarian is the Great Weapon Master. Now, as a Barbarian, most often you're going to be using heavy weapons. The Great Axe is kind of the default, but there's also the Great Sword, there's the Maul, you could probably grab a glaive, you could do a lot with a lot of different weapons. If you have the Great Weapon Master, that makes use of those heavy weapons and the weight that you get to throw around behind it. What this gives you is a couple different perks from having this feat. First off, if you roll a die and you get a critical hit on an enemy, you can take an extra melee attack as a bonus action. On the same vein, if you hit an enemy and reduce their hit points down to 0, you can take another melee attack as a bonus action. This could be on a different target if you want. Now, the real gamble of Great Weapon Master comes from the other part of its ability, where when you roll to hit something, before you roll, you may decide that you want to use your Great Weapon Master feat. What that would mean is that would impose on you a -5 to your attack roll. So if you roll, for example, a 15 to hit somebody, the -5 would make that a 10, which would likely not hit their armor class, depending on the target. In exchange, though, you get a +10 to the damage. A 10 on damage, especially with something like a great sword, or a great axe, that's almost double damage right off the bat just from hitting it. So if you can counteract the -5 to your attack, perhaps by being lucky or just having a really high attack modifier, which if you're strong enough, you should have that, it's probably worth it to just expend those and just gamble with it so you can hit a little harder on each hit. The next feat is more about crowd control and keeping things kind of in your area so you can hit them first or make them hit you a little more, and that is the feat called Sentinel. Sentinel is the feat all about crowd control, and it has a lot of different moments where you're going to want to shout at your DM that you're using Sentinel, because almost everything happens as kind of a reaction. The first thing you'll want to remember is if you have Sentinel and an enemy decides to disengage from you, even if they use their action to disengage, you can still take an opportunity attack against that enemy. Normally, disengage means opportunity attacks can't take effect. This is the counteraction to that one. So, they want to leave your fight. If they want to get away from you, you're going to get a chance to hit them first. Next, on top of that, this is where I think it's really cool, is if you make an opportunity attack on a creature and succeed, if you hit that creature, their speed is then reduced to 0. So what this means is if you're in combat and a creature is like, I want to disengage, and they try to leave, you say, no, Sentinel, and you hit them, then they're stuck where they're standing. And you can hit them again next time if you want. That is a huge powerhouse of crowd control right there, to be kind of pin things down. I know as I play a rogue a lot, I would hate that. I want to be able to move around and get in and get out. I would hate to be stuck next to a barbarian as a rogue because I know they could just destroy me in one hit. The other option of Sentinel is if you are adjacent to a creature and they decide to attack something that is not you, you can then use your reaction for that turn to hit them first, or just to hit them. I don't know if timing really matters in this one. That's just a good way to just say, nope, you gotta hit me. You just smack them, reaction, hit them first, or hit them after, whichever order it comes in. I just think that's a good crowd control maneuver and a good persuasive mechanism to get people to hit you when you have the high hit points. Also know though, this is not an opportunity attack, this is a reaction attack, so the speed deduction that would happen on this does not come into play because it's not an opportunity attack. So remember that when you're using this ability. Next up is a feat that I just think is also still just good for pretty much any class that does a lot of attacking, and that's Savage Attacker. What this feat does is once per turn, you're able to re-roll the damage of an attack. So when you make an attack, if it rolls low, you can decide to re-roll the dice and take the higher number. If you make an attack and it rolls just mediocre and you want to risk it, because you haven't done it yet and this is your last attack, maybe you just want to reroll the dice to hopefully get better. On your second Savage Attack roll, if it is lower than your first one, you don't have to take that roll. You get to reroll the dice and you get to choose which number you take, thus giving you more damage output every round of combat. That's why I think this ability is so great for Barbarians, is you have such high damage output potential. It would really suck if you're hitting something at the beginning of a turn or at the end of a turn and you roll like a 1 on your damage. You're going to want a chance to reroll that to get a little more damage out to help out the team. And the last feat that I want to go over for Barbarians is a little different. It's more utility. It's not so much damage output and damage dealing, but it is called Mage Slayer. This is really good when you need to go against cultists and wizards and evil magic spellcasters that are pretty well commonplace in most fantasy stories. When you as the barbarian might not have the magic to deal with that, this gives you an upper hand when fighting them in close combat. So what happens when you take the Mage Slayer feat? Well, first off, if you are within 5 feet of a spellcaster and they decide to cast a spell, you can use your reaction to hit them. That's all there is. It's so straightforward. They cast in a spell, you're gonna use your reaction to hit them first. Next, if you hit a creature that is concentrating on a spell, because some spells require concentration over a certain length of time, if you have this feat and you hit a creature who is concentrating on it, they will have to roll die to see if they lose concentration. This feat makes them roll that die at disadvantage, so automatically you have more of a chance of knocking a spellcaster out of their concentration and messing up their magic. And the last ability on this is if you have to make a saving throw versus a spell from a spellcaster within 5 feet of you, you get advantage on that saving throw. This just gives you more survivability in those close combat things. If a spellcaster's there and they want to hit you with a fireball because they're reckless like that, this gives you more of a chance to survive at that very close range. So all in all, this feat is all about getting in close to those magic users and smashing them in their magic-y faces. What is your favorite feat for a barbarian? Let me know in the comments below what you think. We'll have a discussion on cool feats for Barbarian. Maybe something even out of the ordinary might be kind of cool to see. So let me know down below. And as always, I've been Richard. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see on the channel, remember to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified when I upload new videos. You can also click over here to see more videos in this playlist, or over here to see what YouTube suggests you watch from my channel.